Convoy. Darkness. Arrogant. And, I think you problem here. You don't really fit into a specific category.
So I'm Divergent.
No, you're just stupid.
Oh.
Yeah, grab a monitor weapons.
Hey, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ethan, and we're going to bring you a review for the new 2015 young adult action movie, Insurgent. So, guys, before seeing the movie, what do you think was going to happen?
Well, I thought Divergent was a pretty okay movie. I mean, it wasn't special, but there were certain elements that I definitely liked. I liked Shailene Woodley. She was really good. The supporting cast were somewhat likable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I had fun with it, and I was expecting more or less the same going into Insurgent.
Alex?
Yeah, I kind of figured, they would kind of step it up from the last one. The last one was a little better than some of the teen movies that have been coming out lately.
Right.
I'm not going to name names, but I think they've been pretty atrocious. But this one, I think, would be a little higher level.
Yeah. For me, I personally saw the first movie, Divergent, the night before seeing this one. So, I kind of had a fresher experience. I don't know when the last time you saw Divergent, but I had
last year.
but I had it was more on the mind of me, so I think I want to take that into account when I saw the movie today. Now, what do you think you actually got from seeing Insurgent, Jonathan?
I thought it was a lot better than the first one. I mean, as a movie, it wasn't, because the plot was everywhere. It was very convoluted. However, I felt that the production value, some of the special effects, the props, and the overall action was a lot better in this than in Divergent.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that came into play. Like you said, the story, what are you going to do about it, Alex?
I mean, for me, I thought that the last one maybe wasn't as entertaining, but I think it definitely had its story well formatted, and it was definitely a lot better plot-wise, even though this one had a little more of the action intense stuff.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean there, and that kind of brings me to the thought of, I think the sequel is better than the original.
Really?
Yeah, I think it pulled a Spider-Man 2.
Huh.
Pulled a Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely liked where this movie took a lot of things.
Wait. Original Spider-Man or new Spider-Man?
The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, the first one, and then Catching Fire. I immensely loved Catching Fire, and it was much better than the first one.
I agree with that.
Jonathan?
Totally.
Yeah, so I thought it did a lot what Catching Fire did for the Hunger Games,
Yeah.
Insurgent did for Divergent.
True.
Okay, so I guess we're going to go into the cons of this movie. So, like we said, it's convoluted.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plot points going on, and not all the dots connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not confusing like in Inception confusing where you actually need to think about it, and if you think about it, you get it.
Yeah.
It's just confusing for the sake of being confusing, and
Right.
it's kind of it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, there's just a lot of scenes that just happen to make, I don't want to say fill time, because that just looks bad on the movie.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it did, because it never went anywhere.
There were side stories that they didn't elaborate upon that could
Right.
have made the movie a lot better.
I agree.
And speaking of things that didn't matter in the end, I've had trouble with character motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one scene where a particular character who's with the main group of characters in this rebellion just immediately stops, like in the middle of the field
switches
somewhere,
direction.
and he's like, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore," and just walks away.
Yeah,
and you're
just
like,
out of the blue.
why?
Yeah.
It's not explained. I mean, there's a brief explanation at the end, but there's no build up to it.
I mean,
No.
I kind of felt like it was pointless. It was just a plot device trying to advance the movie.
Yeah. So I had very big problems with where the characters are coming from and why they did the things that they do, or why they do the things that they did. But what other problems did you have with Insurgent?
it was a little unrealistic at times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, even for our huge dystopian future, which you have to...
Yeah.
That exists.
It could be many dystopian movies. I feel like are what could happen in the future, but there's scenes like one guy in the middle of an open field versus like 20 guys, and he takes out 5 of them in tree cover. They're all hiding.
Yeah.
He takes out 5 of them. Another
Right.
time, there's like they try to combat 20 people on a train with 2 guys, and they win.
Yeah,
I
just,
thought there were also some convenient moments in this movie.
Oh,
For example,
yeah.
For example, let's just say the main character decides to cut her hair, Triss in the movie, right?
yes.
And when she cuts her hair, it cuts, and she has like this freaking
Salon
Paul Mitchell
quality.
haircut.
It's absolutely
With
gorgeous.
scissors she found in a barn.
I'm like, you did that with rusty scissors.
Yeah.
There's no way you can look that good.
Why aren't you a hairdresser?
So just that by itself, I don't know if that's just being, petty, which, never. But it does take you out of the movie because it takes away from the believability that, that wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
Now, even though that's such a small thing, that sometimes happen on such a larger scale, that really takes you out of the movie. It's like, this is not as good as I wanted it to be.
Speaking of, being taken out of the movie, what do you guys think of the intelligence of some of the people?
I thought the main characters, the main heroes, were kind of stupid, and the villain, the group of villains, because this movie couldn't make up its mind on who the villains were.
Good point.
But the group of villains were much smarter than the heroes, and the heroes got duped so easily.
At least the sub group of villains. The main villain was just boring, really. Boring, and she didn't have enough screen time, so it was just a wasted opportunity.
And the screen time was unsatisfying.
Unsatisfying, too.
So, keeping inconsistency in mind, there was a lot of things that made me think that the cast and the director just didn't really care about this movie.
Yeah.
Namely, the actors and actresses just didn't feel like they were into this movie, and they didn't act as well as the main chick.
Yeah, or like they didn't give their all.
For example, Miles Teller.
Yeah, great in Whiplash.
Whiplash pretty much
Extremely
made his career. He is
And,
now a respectable actor.
And while he did do a fine job, it's nothing stellar.
Yeah.
Right.
It was still just mediocre, and that's
Just
unfortunate because he's such a great actor.
Let me have my screen time, give me my money, and I'm gonna leave and go on to better things.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the last thing I want to touch up on is this movie was really CG heavy towards the end.
True.
Yeah.
And I thought that some of the visuals were fantastic,
Yeah.
and some of them were really bad.
Yeah.
Lackluster.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier, sometimes in the same scene.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, for
exactly.
example, there's where it gets really CG heavy, it involves like this digital reality, and some of the effects were really cool.
Yeah.
Almost kind of reminded me of like Assassin's Creed and how the world reconstructs and blows up around the characters.
Yeah.
That was awesome. However, there was one shot in particular where the main villain gets tackled, and it goes from normal person to CG person, and I'm like, oh my god, that was awful.
It was completely noticeable and sci-fi movie level.
But at least it was nice to see such pretty good visuals, like better visuals than there should have been in such a okay movie.
Right.
True.
Also,
but now that we're talking about the kind of little now that we're talking about the virtual reality stuff, I kind of thought that everything that happened in this movie was very predictable. And although it kind of twisted it up on how it got to the end result, you pretty much predicted the end result from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I thought that the final 10 seconds of the movie was unpredictable. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was
Clap,
quite
clap,
nice.
clap,
Yeah.
clap.
Yeah, it was just good twist at the end, but not enough substance behind it.
That should have been the whole entire movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. So, Ethan, overall, what are you going to give Insurgent?
Well, Insurgent had a lot of things wrong with its plot, a lot of things wrong with its characters, but I thought it was a fine time. You're not going to hate yourself after seeing the movie, and it had nice visuals. So I'm pretty much going to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. So Alex, what do you think of Insurgent?
Well, I think Insurgent definitely did not tie up the little side plots that it had, and anything that was very interesting, anything that was interesting in the movie, I feel like they neglected to expand upon it. It was predictable, it was very mainstream, and I don't think it deviated
Didn't take
from
any
the norm.
risks.
No, none at all. And for that, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
Alright, yeah. Jonathan?
Alex, I'm going to have to agree with you. 3 out of 5. I did have fun with this movie. I did think it was an improvement upon the originals in a lot of areas, but overall, like Ethan said, you're not going to hate yourself. You might have fun. I mean, if you're someone who read the book, you might have a lot of fun with this, seeing, the world that you knew and loved in the book presented on screen. But for someone who hasn't read the book, I thought it was pretty okay.
Yeah.
It was fine.
So, how'd you like our review? Let us know in the comments, and don't be afraid to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, subscribe, and buy our merchandise at cafepress.com/stubmasters. You'll get a cool shirt like this. Have a nice day.